This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
But getting up to the top of the elevator and just throwing my bags out into the foyer and just falling down on the ground and screaming.
Hello, and welcome back to another new episode of Live Through That. I'm your host, Mike Hipple, and on this podcast, we dig a little deeper into the pivotal moments that shaped the lives of some of my favorite artists from the 80s and 90s. I'm really pleased today to have Angie Hart from the band Frente on the show. Angie first came to international attention in the early 90s as the voice behind Frente's offbeat tender alt-pop, including their beloved cover of Bizarre Love Triangle from New Order. Since then, she's built a rich and varied career spanning solo records, collaborations, theater work, and deeply personal songwriting that's resonated with listeners for decades. In this conversation, Angie shares her recent autism ADHD diagnosis and what it takes to reclaim your artistic voice over time. Angie also shares stories from the early Frente years, reflects on navigating the music industry, and opens up about how identity and self-understanding shape the way she makes art.
So I had my diagnosis for ADHD, which is autism ADHD, midway through 2025. My child had just been diagnosed at the start of the year, and when we sat in and the wonderful person that put all of the power in their hands got them to tell us themselves that they were ADHD, a light bulb went off for me that it all matched up so correctly. Like, I've been searching for my whole life. I've been writing songs about, what is I'm open, whatever it is, tell me what's going on with me, because I thought I had some really long-standing trauma that was informing my whole life. I couldn't work out why everything went through this really weird filter. So it was that's my pivotal moment. Yeah, so I do a lot of, like, one of the very common things about autism is the need for truth. So I've had a need for truth for I've got my sense of justice is off the radar. I need to be able to read people, and I need to know if what's coming out of their mouth matches their face and like what they're doing with their body, all of that stuff. And so I've always kind of thought that I was just really pedantic about there's only certain kind of people gel for me. And I would call all of that my mental health issues. So I thought I had a lot of mental health issues, and I was having a lot of panic attacks. I was really up and down with anxiety and depression, and I couldn't work out what my triggers were. I just sometimes was coping and sometimes I wasn't coping. Got really tired all the time. I was terrible in the workforce. I couldn't keep a job. So lots of those. I thrived in music, and I would do deep dives and be very intense about what I wanted to do, but it was very niche. It was my own. I have a lot of limitations within music. There are things I can't do, but I absolutely have to do it. So it was all of those, like, what am I? This all sounds very useless to me, but it turned out that, just wired differently.
You had mentioned that you didn't feel like you were great at music. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I don't play an instrument very well, but I can write on an instrument. Every time I've had lessons, I have like what I call a whiteout. I can't absorb just straight theory, or even that whole, when you have a lesson and there are certain chords on the scale that you're like, well, that one doesn't make sense on the scale. Why is that one like that when all of the others don't follow that pattern? And the teacher tells you it's just because. I couldn't handle that. I hate it's just because in music theory. That was like, no, I've switched off already. I don't want to know about that. And I just couldn't absorb music in that same way. So I talk in like the music has to be, it's very like the music's going to be like, oh, it feels really when you walk in and you see a person and you feel, oh, that's what that music's going to be, and trying to describe that to other people. That's one of the things I love being in a studio. There's the language is all like weird bodily functions and strange sounds. Everyone's just going, it's got to be more woo. That's perfect for me.
As a performer, being on the spectrum must have been hard because you're constantly meeting new people and constantly putting yourself out there. How do you work within that?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. I'll probably say this a million times. It's so interesting looking back. The whole thing's been like dominoes for me now. But I thought of myself as a shy performer, and I couldn't understand how I could be so shy and have this really strong desire to get on stage. So I had both. The, those things were, I needed nobody to look at me and I needed to get on stage. And so we did when Frente was touring a lot through the US, especially, we played with some really big bands and had these great opportunities, a lot of people that I really admired, and I couldn't talk to them. And I would get one of the band members to take me to and from the toilet because I didn't want to leave my room. And I just thought I was a jerk. I couldn't work out like why it was like this, and it was really frustrating. I wanted to talk to these people that I admired, but I would just stare at the floor and burn holes in it because I couldn't form words around people that I had strong feelings about. And yeah, the new buildings, like we supported Alanis Morissette, and that was all in arenas. And the arenas, that was just so challenging for me because they're on a loop, and you just walk around in this circle. And when I get really challenged sensorily or in a big space, I lose my bearings, and so I didn't want to leave my room because it was so vast out there. I didn't feel safe whenever I left my room. I would have to get someone to take me to the toilet. Didn't want to run into anyone. Get someone to make a lunch plate for me from the canteen and bring it back in. I just couldn't handle any of that.
Did people react negatively to these behaviors?
Sometimes. I think mostly it was probably seen as quite diva behavior, where I know people in my hometown, when the band took off and became really successful, people switched the idea of me being shy to all of a sudden I was really snooty. That was their translation of why I didn't talk to people, because we were so successful. But I never talked to people because I was always this way. Yeah, so that I wish I'd known more of that. I had panic attacks when I remember in Seattle we were playing in a big venue that might have been with Alanis too. I can't remember who was supporting, but turning up to the venue after sound check, we'd had a break and we came back and I couldn't find a way into the building. I hadn't asked anybody. Like, I have a lot of that. I don't take the steps to find out, looking at we get these great worksheets and I don't look at them and I don't understand who's looking after us or where the entrance is. And I turned up and I came to the front door of the arena, which is, you're not, as an artist, you're not going to get in that way. And there were all these people lined up out the front and they were excited to see me, and I freaked out. It's like I just wasn't prepared for that either. That's a whole different face and a different way of talking to people, and had a complete panic attack there, which they don't look like meltdowns with me. It's just fear. I just freeze up and had to get someone to come and get me. Yeah, a lot of that happened. I had those times sometimes, and I look back because I was so ashamed of those moments. I remember in St. Louis coming to the hotel, we'd had, like, traveling was really hard. So that's transitions, and that's terrible for an autistic brain. And just that stress of being in a lot of, like, airports and loud noise, all of that stuff. And coming out of a elevator after checking in at the front desk, which check-in for me was also, I realise how hard it all was now, and I wondered why I behaved the way I did. But getting up to the top of the elevator and just throwing my bags out into the foyer and just falling down on the ground and screaming, and I didn't know why I did that. I felt so immature, and Yeah, it just came out of nowhere. Just had enough. I just couldn't even get out of the elevator. I couldn't get to my room. I was like, I'm done. Yeah, none of us really knew. We all had, and that's the thing, you're probably traveling with a bunch of neurodivergent people as well, because that's the odds are that you probably all are neurodivergent if you're gravitating towards each other. We did what we could for each other. We just thought we were all eccentric and had strong needs. We self-medicated. I did. I drank a lot, and I ended up, partying a lot with recreational drugs, and I can see why now. Yeah, and just to end the day, like just to switch off, numb out at the end of like that adrenaline of being on stage, as everyone has. Like that's a really common one. And then for me, I think it's that masking and the exhaustion. You just want to stop.
Have you reached out and spoken to some of these people from your past and just kind of talked about some of this stuff?
With some people I have, mostly not. With my band members, I definitely have. And they're all really accepting. I think at this point, there's still a lot to know about autism and how unique it is amongst each community and within each genre field, all of that stuff, and then personally. So, when I tell people I have autism, that doesn't mean that they know anything about me really. Then you still have to get into this is why this happened, or this is how I manifest my traits or my coping mechanisms.
I really appreciate you being so open about your diagnosis and sharing that with us. Shifting gears a bit, I'd love to talk about your cover of New Order's Bizarre Love Triangle, which really marked a breakthrough for you in the United States. In my opinion, it's one of those few covers that rely less on being kind of a karaoke type thing and really makes the song your own. How did you come to record that?
Pretty unceremoniously. We did a batch. It sounds even worse. We did a batch of songs that we were going to use for B-sides for when we did singles and at the time when people did that, when you actually had B-sides. And so we just spent a weekend in the studio and we recorded about 6 or 7 covers of things, and that was one of them, and that went on the back of Labour of Love. We are huge New Order fans, Simon especially, so it wasn't just no song. It's a song that we love. It's a song that I remember going to underage discos, dancing to, and thinking I was really fucking cool. It's obviously an incredible song because stripped back it still stands. It's an ultimate piece of emotional songwriting. But yeah, we put it into a run of songs that we broke down acoustically. And it wasn't until we released Labour of Love in the States that it took off. So we sent Labour of Love to radio, and that was on the B-side, and Labour of Love got a little bit of attention, but not much. And then some DJs started playing the B-side, and the phones lit up, and that was how we started doing college runs in the US.
So when Bizarre Love Triangle became a hit, how were you feeling? Were you upset that Labour of Love wasn't the one that took off?
Oh yeah, not upset at all. It was great. So we'd been touring around Australia for the last 2-3 years with our album, Marvin the Album, and Labour of Love was one of the first songs that we put out in Australia, and that broke for us and enabled us to make the album in the first place. And we were so tired of touring around Australia and coming overseas and getting any kind of like that enabled us we travelled around to all the radio stations and played acoustic in their tea rooms and all that kind of stuff. It was really fun. That enabled us to go to lots of places. So it felt like a change, and it felt like a really nice tone to come into the US.
Frente released their second album, Shape, in 1996. But by then, things weren't as bright and the band soon parted ways. How did that happen, and how did you come back together?
Yeah, 2-part question. We broke up, I think, probably the end of 90 or start of 95, 96, we broke up. I remember being in Malaysia for New Year's Eve. We were doing a show and realising that was as far as I could go with it at that time. I feel like we were all really burnt out and we'd said yes to way too many things, and we were just, not a happy group together. So that was not an easy thing to do, but that was the right decision at that time. And I moved to LA. I married somebody who lives in LA, still does. And Simon moved to New York eventually. And so we shared the coasts, and like 3 or 4 years in, or maybe more, we started doing acoustic shows in each other's towns. And that was a really delicate toe in the water, and it was a really lovely way to do things. So we kind of just gently eased back into it. All of us stayed friends. The structure of the band and touring heavily was having, I think one of the reasons was to break up was to keep our friendship and to keep our sanity. I think we were all falling apart in a very big way at that time. So it was, you could see where it was going. And I think it was, a maintenance move. To put it, that sounds very cold, but yeah. So we started doing little acoustic shows, Simon and I, and we just kind of never announced that we were back. We just kind of, called it a hiatus and said that we were slowly doing some shows. And for the 21st anniversary, we got a band together. And even before that, we did a recording, we did a bit, like I was going back and forth to Australia and Simon was still in America. And we did an EP called Try to Think Less. And that was, just a very casual affair. We released it unceremoniously, did a few shows in Australia and some on the bi-coasts, and kept on our merry way. So it was until the 21st anniversary that we made a big deal of being Frente again.
I came across a mention that you grew up in a Christian commune. I know that can mean a wide range of things. In my head, it's kind of like a hippie love commune or Jim Jones type thing. I'd love to better understand what it was really like in your case.
Yeah. So we have those in Australia too. But the one that I was a part of, it's actually called a community, but it was the makeup of a commune. It was, I think now it would be classed as a cult, but it was pretty tame insofar as those kinds of things go. And it was a Baptist church that was ecumenical, which means that they're open to all religions. And we lived in a suburb in the inner city, and we did what's called urban mission work, which the kids did and the adults. And we had 60 people living over 11 households in that same area. And you had to do a compulsory amount of hours of mission work a week and attend prayers every morning and Eucharist on a Friday evening. And everyone paid a percentage of money to the main coffers. That was kind of it. But it had its own shortcomings, of which any idealistic group that gets together and tries to create what they think is going to be utopia, it always falls apart, and it did. And so I feel like I was the wrong age to be in that. I feel like I fell through the cracks pretty heavily in that time, and my family was not, we were incredibly dysfunctional, which, through that lens again, you look back and it's like, wow, we're a really classically neurodivergent family, but we were messy and there was no support there because we're helping other people. I think because the intention was good, but the actual execution of it was it had a lot of holes. I think it wasn't a great thing. And as a child, my parents thought it was really great to be exposed to all walks of life, and I do subscribe to that, but I think you need a very supportive scaffolding to allow your family to be exposed to that. So I feel like I was in a lot of situations that were unsuitable at my age, and we were taught to put other people first. And I do agree with some of those things in some ways, but I've had to undo a lot of that. My boundaries are shot.
What happened after you left the commune? I believe that was when you were 15?
Yeah, pretty messy. I was a very messy person, so I did a lot of imploding and exploding, and my family was quite messy. I'm trying to write a memoir at the moment and frame it in the best way possible, because everyone was doing their best. But yeah, we moved. My mum and I moved out of the community into a share house, which was also probably pretty unsuitable for my age, and I was trying to finish high school. And that's how I got into band. I was really into drama, and not the lifestyle kind. I'm probably that as well, but into theatre. And I was really bad at it because I was super shy and I didn't want anyone to look at me, like I said. So that was the desire to do theatre, and absolutely zero aptitude for it. And Simon found out that I was doing theatre and had a singing part in a play, and asked if I wanted to be in a band. And I feel like that was, this is a whole nother podcast for you. It rescued me. I feel like it validated a lot of things about me. So I was writing poetry. I wanted to be a performer in some capacity, and I hadn't found how I could channel what I am into something that I could handle. And being on stage and being able to stare at my feet and try and get my true meaning outside of my body was perfect for me. And I could go at my own pace because all bands are weird. And so I could be weird and learn as I went,
I'd read that you had to learn to assert your creative boundaries and claim your power in collaborations. When did you realize you weren't doing that? And how did you take those reins back? Was that connected to your autism as well, or something that you'd been wanting to do anyway?
It's a good question. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that before. Yeah, I'm still putting together my jigsaw pieces of what it means. And that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think I really needed recording and songwriting and everything to be, we all like to control our expression, and it's a sacred thing, isn't it? What you need to put out creatively. It's your biggest part of your identity, I think. And coming from, I think it probably was the case in the US, but Australia definitely had a lot of, through the 80s and 90s in music, it was highly sexist and very rock and roll and very big pub scene. So, touring was done a particular way on the grid. And so for our kind of band, and for me being so what I thought was shy and having particular needs, I really struggled in that atmosphere. And with collaborating, it's all, bombastic. Everyone was older than me, bombastic rock and roll figures that I didn't know how to assert myself with. And there was this picture about our band that I was really sweet and cute and maybe didn't have much of an opinion about anything because people didn't ask. So yeah, I felt like I was fighting against a lot at that time. And then your band gets a picture painted about them, and so over the years I feel like I've been kind of repainting that. Yeah.
And that's it for this week's episode. Many thanks to Angie for chatting with me and being so open and vulnerable. I know that she and Simon are working together on some new Frente music, so hopefully we'll be seeing that sometime in the near future. And as always, a quick reminder that you can buy my book on 80s musicians and where they are today, 80s Redux, and its sequel, Live Through That, on 90s artists, wherever you buy your books. And if you like this show, please leave a review where you're listening. It always helps others find us. And of course, subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.